Alastor is probably the worst character in... wait,
Okay, much better. Alastor is certainly the worst character in all of Hazbin Hotel, or at least that's how he would like to be seen. Alastor was a citizen of New Orleans, one of the most friendly cities and also most linked to voodoo in the United States. While alive, Alastor entered various social circles, jazz bars, and consequently climbed the social hierarchy, gaining fame, recognition, and contracts, perhaps to live a better life. It's worth remembering that in the 1930s, when he was alive, the US was still quite racially segregated, so his darker skin tone could lead to certain exclusion or even prejudice. However, he never seemed to take insults laying down, just the bodies down in this case. Thus, knowing his fate, Alastor decides to perform rituals using human blood to contact the other side and made a pact for when he arrives at his destination. He knew he probably wouldn't go to heaven, so he needed to prepare for his descent to hell. Then, in the very next day, he ends up dying after being mistaken for a deer and devoured by hunting dogs, and thus begins his descent or ascent in hell. Well, looking at his personality type, right away we see how he is clearly an ENTP, a personality type whose main archetype is always that of a trickster, a type of personality for any cartoon character who, besides being charismatic, always gets out of any problem no matter how screwed he is. Characters like Bugs Bunny, Woodpecker, or just myself. It's no wonder then that this is considered the favorite personality type among all the types according to Personality Database, which is quite scientific, don't question it. But everyone already knew that, because just like the trickster archetype, we see Alastor exhibiting such behaviors throughout this anime, especially through his contracts. Despite this, while many people use certain terms to define this character as trickster, smiling, charismatic, and so on, I would use a totally different term to define Alastor, but one that as soon as I say it will make complete sense, which is preparation. Although ENTPs are known for their sense of humor, jokes, and even troll or nonsense behavior on the internet, these are negative behaviors for this personality type because none of them prioritize the long-term future. ENTPs use dominant extroverted intuition and E, which is always seeking possibilities. But when combined with tertiary FE or extroverted feeling, they can become merely impulsive, always following what seems most appealing and activates their emotions in the now without thinking about later. Alastor is completely different from this because despite everything, he's not a planner like that guy in the comments or the other people who vote him as the ENTJ think. After all, while Vox, a true ENTJ, always plans from the beginning where and how he wants to arrive, Alastor seems much more open to the paths he will take. Even if he knows what he wants, he rarely follows a defined plan for it, similar to characters like the Joker, who is also an ENTP. Sometimes he just wants to watch the world burn, or adapt to the situation he finds himself in to escape dangers. That's what makes him to go after that cannibal woman, and when he doesn't get the help to recover his staff, he pursues a new possibility to confront and deceive Vox with a contract. A contract that simply consisted of not touching Charlie. Because of this, instead of seeing Alastor as a planner of a concrete and defined future, a plan so rigid that it requires controlling people around him and getting frustrated like what happened with Vox, Alastor just prepares for the worst, so to speak, and because of that, he always gets out of things. Something he does since he was alive in almost every contract he makes. It's always like a precaution or a caution instead of knowing definitely how and where it will lead. An example is the contract he makes with Charlie, where he asks for a favor when the time comes. And even though everyone thought of the worst and that he was planning something terrible with it, at the end, he only uses that contract to ask for a favor in a situation that he probably saw as opportune, and not something he had planned since the beginning. It's very similar to the detachment of Western religions and philosophies, or even the psychological state of mindfulness or full attention. He doesn't seem to be attached to the results he desires. He opens himself to the flexibility of the moment, always acting as necessary, but always with the prior preparation he always did in his life. Something that truly I recognize in myself. After all, I love studying various things even without needing to, and when I make these types of videos, all that learning accumulated is extremely useful because of it. It's the famous luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Thus, despite being a trickster, we can point out how this preparation of Alastor is certainly a very admirable and positive thing to do, especially for his personality, because many studies shows how thinking about the future and long term, besides generating great mental health, is also linked to greater success in life, higher salaries, and greater well-being in general, things that Alastor always seems to seek for himself, perhaps even his main source of motivation. After all, of all the characters, I would say that he is, without a doubt, one of the healthiest in all of hell. Because while some make terrible choices like Angel Dust and Husker, or have emotional tantrums like Vox or Charlie, Alastor is always centered, but never obsessive. He always thinks of the best possible outcome. Even situations that seem inescapable, he never loses control of himself, and most importantly, he always finds a way for everything he desires. Therefore, I here declare Alastor as the psychological healthiest character in all of Hazbin Hotel. Congratulations, Alastor. That said, let's now see a list of all the crimes he committed and how many years in prison he could get following the American legislation. Just wait, sit it down. Or watching my other video on Vox. My name is Julius Caesar, share and comment this video. I will see you next time. Au revoir, mes amis.